Roland Tomaso, I think the guy's name was.
Okay, looks like we are live.
Okay, Roland Tomaso.
Roland Tomaso. I'm supposed to remember.
No. And the people in the chat may know the name of the phony guy in L.A. Confidential, the made-up name by Kevin Spacey of a guy that was kind of the key point in the movie. I think the phony name was Roland Tomaso. But I'm sorry. Go on. I was just thinking of something else.
No, I'm happy to be here. Welcome to Tuesday. Welcome to now. Okay, a lot of people are pushing back. Is this belated Halloween? Why are we doing this today?
It's All Saints Day. What are you talking about, belated Halloween? This is All Saints Day, bro. This is when we celebrate Halloween in my house.
Okay.
November 1st. I don't know what you people are talking about. We're not on Monday, so we can't do anything about that. But All Saints Day is horrible. I mean, there's a lot of darkness, and we're going to give you some darkness today.
All right. So we got Roland Tomasi.
Roland Tomasi. Tomasi or Tomaso? Oh, here it is. Okay, Ryan. Okay, thank you, Ryan. Thank you. Has nothing to do with the story. I couldn't remember the guy's name. But it does. There's a guy like that in this story, but separate thing.
All right, reaching forward. Now, I guess somebody else stood in for me on Friday, but I'm back today.
Okay. Was I here Friday?
Yes, you were here.
Where were you?
I don't know. I guess I wasn't here. Somebody stood in for me. Some dude in makeup.
Right. The Grim Reaper. Yeah. Boy, that was a scary outfit, hon. I had nightmares.
I guess so.
Okay. I just got to give a shout out because D.H. Pellegro passed away, 63 years of age. A very close friend of mine, the drummer for the Chili Peppers and, of course, the Dead Kennedys. Great guy. One of the bright lights, of happiness in this dark city of Hollywood. Everybody knew DH. He wrestled with addiction his entire life. We were very close, me and him, and fantastic musician. He was raised in St. Louis, born in Mississippi, but just one of the sweetest guys you've ever met in your life. Always upbeat, always had a smile on his face. Just a great guy. Just a really, really sad story. So I just want to get that out of the way about Pellegro.
All right. So starting out a little dark, but.
Yeah, well, it's going to get dark. It's going to get darker, but
yeah. All right. So I guess I'm delaying the inevitable.
Well, do you have one of your commercials that you do, Hunley? What isn't this the part where you sell something?
I don't have a commercial. We have a conference we'll sell later on, but today, no.
Okay. All right.
You know what? Right now, you know what I've got to sell?
What?
Actually, it's perfect day.
Right. That was brilliant. Way to go. It's like minds thinking alike. Very good, Hunley.
Thank you very much. We got to stay ahead of Hinckley. The guy's going.
Dude, Hinckley's going on tour.
He's going on tour.
He's got a music tour to go on.
And he keeps selling out of merch. I can't believe this guy.
Well, wait till he goes on tour when he has his groupies there and he's playing his Beatles songs. I guess he does, or whatever his song list is. Hinckley originals mixed with covers.
Hey, Jodie Foster, or what? I
don't know. Maybe we should do a Hinckley. While Hinckley's still alive, we could do a Hinckley Untold Stories.
Yes, you want to make sure to do stories about people who are near me.
Right. Oh, what do you mean? When he's playing near you, or
no? The guy lives near me.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Oh, within about 30 minutes.
Oh my God! I thought he was somewhere. I thought he was in Colorado or something. Okay.
No, he's Williamsburg, Virginia.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Home of the Hinkleys, right by the golf course.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, what do you want to do with this story? You want to say something about this, or you have a photo you want to put up, or I don't know how you want to do it, but
you're driving, my friend. This story is dark as hell.
Everybody knows the story of the movie, I guess, with Brolin and Margot Kidder, right? James Brolin, not Josh Brolin. We're gonna start with that. Yeah, that's James Brolin. Later, his son is Josh Brolin. But this is 1979. That house is in Falls River, New Jersey, I think, or Toms River, New Jersey. That was not the actual house. You could see the difference right away. But they're playing George and Eileen Lutz, the Lutzes, and I don't know if you have a picture of the Lutzes who they're playing. Helen Lutz or Eileen Lutz, George Lutz,
Kathleen.
Kathleen. I'm sorry, Kathleen,
George and Kathleen Lutz.
That maybe could show who they are. Yeah, there's the original people who bought the house after the story that we're going to get into, and that became the Jay Anson book of all of the incredible supernatural events that went on in the house. Rod Steiger played the priest. I think his name was Pescasaro or something, blessing the house, and then flies and trouble.
And yeah, flies, fun.
Flies and doors and ooze and everything else. So, okay, so they stay in the house for 28 days and then they split. Yeah, they kind of look a little bit alike, right? Yeah. Margot Kidder, of course, it ends badly for Margot Kidder, as many fans of Lois Lane know. Did not end well for her. She got involved in narcotics and was bipolar, lost her teeth, lost her laptop, lost her memoirs, and then spiraled into complete distortion and eventually committed suicide, or so they say. But we'll get to that later, because that's another story about Margot Kidder. She may have had the curse of Amityville on her. Now, the Amityville horror, in as many of our stories have been depicted here, Eric, this one, of course, involves me. So the reason we've been putting this off is because this is yet another story that somehow I'm involved in, and I'm sure there's no surprises among the viewers, but they're thinking, how is Lord Buckley involved in this particular story? Well, let's get to the story, and then I'll show you how it intersects with me. There's a guy named Ronnie DeFeo. Now, Ronnie DeFeo is named Butch. His real name is Ronnie DeFeo Jr. His father is Ron DeFeo Sr. Ron DeFeo Sr. is a huge man who weighs about 280 pounds, and he is abusive to the entire family. There's about 5 or 6 of them in there. It grows. They grow up in Brooklyn. The apartment becomes too big. And a guy named Michael Brigante, who is the father of his wife. This is his father-in-law. Michael Brigante owns Brigante Buick on Coney Island Avenue, 80 Coney Island Avenue, to be exact, in Brooklyn. I grew up on Avenue K and Coney Island Avenue. So, yeah, there's Michael Brigante. He is a guy who is like the mayor of Brooklyn in a lot of ways. He goes to all these different events. He's revered. He gets these awards from Buick. They have a very, very successful Buick dealership. He buys that house in Amityville for his daughter. Just to explain the backstory, which is needed for this story. That guy buys that house for his daughter because the father, who is Ron DeFeo Sr., Big Ronnie, as he's known. If you could show a picture of Big Ronnie, his son-in-law, I think will be able to follow it a little bit better if you have the Big Ronnie shot. This is Ron DeFeo Jr.'s father. Okay, that's him younger. Yeah, that's him like in high school or something. But he knocks up the girl. They're forced to marry by Michael Brigante with the pregnancy situation. And there's Ron DeFeo Jr. on the left, and Ron DeFeo Sr. on the right. They had a guy come in and paint all these paintings of the entire family. Really kind of creepy looking, portraits. But the guy who did the painting, Van Hessling, whatever his name was, had an affair with his wife, which is another story. But this one here on the right, this guy here is a piece of work. This is Big Ronnie DeFeo. Now, Big Ronnie DeFeo works in the Buick dealership of his father-in-law, and he works in the parts department. So he is not happy being under the thumb of his father-in-law. So he beats the crap out of his wife almost every single day and the family almost every single day. And this kid on the left, Ronnie DeFeo Jr., is savagely beaten all the time by his father. I don't mean just smacked around. I mean bloodied and bruised his entire life. Oh, yeah. It's brutal. So he, on the right, Big Ronnie, on the front lawn, they have all these religious statues of St. Joseph and Mary and all this stuff. And he goes out in the middle of the night and he talks to them out loud on his knees, praying to them. And the neighbors see this through the years, and they just go, "What's with this guy?" It's a pretty upscale neighborhood. But let me backtrack as to where it is. Ocean Avenue is right off of Merrick Road. I lived in East Massapequa, which is a little bit further up Sunrise Highway, but I went to school in Amityville High School, the same as Ron DeFeo Jr. That's where my part in this story comes into play. I went to high school with him, with that guy on the left, if you could imagine that. And this kid on the left was with a much rougher crowd. He had drugs involved. He was addicted to heroin. I did not personally hang out with him. I was a freshman. He was a senior, so there was a 3 or 4 year gap in age. But his crew was a very rough crew. The kid on the left, Big Ronnie on the right, was probably the most abusive father ever recorded. And the kid on the left took a beating every single day, and he was involved in various small crimes like stealing outboard motors and stuff like that. But the fact of the matter is they had a ton of money, and he gave this kid a lot of money to play around with, and he would give him $500. This is 1970, Eric, 71. He'd give him $500. That was his allowance. He would give him $500 a week allowance to play around with. So he got involved in drugs and heroin. And he got himself a little bit of a crew. They hung out at a place called Henry's Bar, which I think was on Merrick Road. It could have been on Sunrise Highway. I don't exactly, just a blue collar working class bar. Yeah, there's some of what they found from DeFeo. Anyway, he was so abused, and so were the other kids. He was 22. He had an 18-year-old sister named Dawn, and she was abused by the father too. Dawn's on the left in that picture, and then there's the 3 boys in the back there. But Dawn, a girl and 2 boys, I'm sorry. Dawn is on the left, and she was 18, and she was abused by the father as well. She had a boyfriend. She wanted to go to Florida. He wouldn't let her. She wanted to kill the father as well. They all wanted to kill the father. I mean, this is just to back up on this crime of what happened with this crime. Her and Ronnie, aka Butch, on the right, numerous times conspired to kill the father. And when the crime happened, it was an open and shut case in the media of the kid who snapped and killed the whole family. So to backtrack on the crime of that night of November 18th, 1974, I was already in college, but I came back for the holidays to be with my family in Massapequa, Long Island, which is the next town, East Massapequa. And that's when the crime happened. So I was home for the holidays. This was the biggest mass murder in New York State history, and may still be. I don't know what the record is for a single mass murder. Obviously, there were serial killers like the son of Sam, but that's different, as I've pointed out to you many times, between a mass murder and a serial killer. We've discussed this on the show and off the air. It's 2 different things. One is a guy who snaps, kills everyone, and then the serial killer is a guy who does it over a long period of time.
And then there's a spree that's in the middle. It's like a sequence event. Yeah, the same day, it's a mass murder, but it's kind of like a sequence event on the day.
Right. So he takes this Marlin lever action rifle, this 35 caliber Marlin, and according to the police report, in the middle of the night, shoots everybody. There's the actual gun. Yeah, you could see how carefully they handled that. That's the lever action. Dude, it's a great gun. I wish I had that gun. That's a great gun. Anyway, so that's the murder weapon. He shoots, according to the police, every single one in the back while they're sleeping. Now, yeah, that's another good shot of it. Yeah, wow, what a great gun. Anyway, so we're not going to show you the bodies because Eric wants to show you on Locals.
I don't want to show anybody anything, but I'm not going to show them on YouTube. But
Eric, who cannot survive by showing these photos, has agreed to show them on Locals. Even though they were on the front page of the Daily News, Eric finds this to be so offensive.
Eric likes monetization.
It's all about money with that. It's got nothing to do with the bloody carnage that happened that day. However, that being said, the photos, which I'll describe to you and you can see later, each one of them is under the covers sleeping. face down on their stomachs, all 6 of them, 2 parents, 4 children. It's a 3-story house. It's huge. And they're in separate bedrooms all through the house. And it's a big house. So the parents' master bedroom, he gets 2 shots in the back, the father. He's laying face down. The mother gets shot. Then upstairs, next kid, next kid, next kid, next kid, right? And it's an open and shut case, Eric.
One of those things, you have to go, though. Wait a minute. I don't think that was the quietest gun in the world.
Aha, now you're catching on, Hunley. That's what I like about you. You could have been a private eye. Right. The question is, and the cops don't care. The cops don't care. They get a confession out of him. After 18 hours, they take him in. They're bringing out the body bags. The police show up. But before that, you wonder what happened. How did they find out? DeFeo, Butch, goes into Henry's bar. This happens a little bit later after what I'm going to tell you. Butch goes into Henry's bar and yells, "They've killed my parents. They've killed my parents." And his friends in the bar come with him to the house. This is before the police, Eric. This is before the police. He goes and gets his buddies. They come driving back. I'm sorry. They jump in the car. They drive back to his house on Ocean Avenue, which is pretty close. And they go into the house and they go, "Holy crap, look at that." Him and his friends, right? And then they call the police, and the police show up, and the house is just Grand Central Station. Cops, people, neighbors, everybody's in there. Dead bodies. The media comes, the outside, the neighbors, everything. So they begin to carry out the body bags. Rigor mortis is set in on a couple of them. They're bringing them out. The neighborhood is watching this, not knowing how many body bags are going to come out of that house. Nobody knows that how many are dead. They see 1. They see 2, they see 3. The 4th one comes out with one of the little kids, and they drop the little kid out of the body bag onto the street.
Oh.
And they got to pick him up and put him back into the body bag. And the whole crowd just gasps in horror. The neighbors, they just can't believe what they've seen. And they load them into these wagons, and they take them to the morgue. The coroner is told there's 1 homicide to report to the office for this 1 homicide. Then he's told there's 2. Then he's told there's 4. Then he's told there's 6. The guy doesn't know what to do. He's never had even 1. He has 1 a year, this guy, the coroner of Suffolk County. So they then bring in the Suffolk County police. Amityville police are like a local rinky-dink police force that really just chased drunk teenagers around in Amityville. You know what I mean? The school was pretty close by. He had gone to St. Martin's of Tours Catholic school. He had gone to parochial school and then went to Amityville High School, which I always called the Amityville Horror my whole life. The Amityville Horror for me was that high school. That was the worst high school in the state of New York. It was completely run by psychopaths. We didn't have snow days. We had bomb days. It had racial conflict. We were bused to that high school. It was 50% black, 50% white. They were fighting day and night. It was the beginning of something called busing, which didn't exist until my mother smartly moved from a beautiful school in Brooklyn to Massapequa and didn't bother to check on what school we'd be going to. And I swear to God, And my aunt, after my mother died, my aunt told me that my mother knew we were going to that school and just didn't give a shit. And it was literally the worst school statistically in the state of New York. So, of course, I think I graduated 4th in my class, but it was a class of, there was like 50 bright kids in the school. That was my crew. So
was this a payback for your kidnapping hoax as a kid?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But once I went to college, she immediately moved. She knew that the other 2 kids would never survive. My 2 younger brothers, they moved to Merrick, went to a great school in Merrick. But I had to get on a bus and go to that school and fight every single day. Now I was on the baseball team, I was on the football team, so I had some slack cut from me. But boy, oh boy, this school was unbelievable. And I'll show you, just in case there's doubters out there, this is my actual hat from the Amityville baseball team on which I played for a number of years as a senior. Just a little little saving.
Hold on, a number of years as a senior.
No, I started as a sophomore, and I played 3 years. Yeah, 3 years.
Varsity. You meant varsity.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. Varsity.
I was going to say your multiple years as a senior would be a
Oh,
pretty
no,
long.
no. Multiple years. I got out of there as soon as I could. I had a calendar on my wall crossing off every day till I got out of there. I mean, my best friend was the coach. I mean, he was trying to get me out of there. He tried to get me to try out for the Yankees, but that's a story for another day. But anyway, so he had already graduated, DeFeo. At that point, when I was a senior, he had graduated. He was out, and they paid $5,000 to a recruiter, an Army recruiter, to get him out of the draft. His father gave the guy $5,000 to get him out, and because he got a draft, I got a draft number, he got a draft number. His draft number was much higher than mine, apparently, and his father had to go down and bribe the guy with $5,000, according to Butch DeFeo. So anyway, so he kills them all. And then the police take him in and they start interrogating him. And he says initially, this is a mob hit. He's a big guy. He's a big guy. He's a brawler. He was a big brawler. When he drank, he was a psycho. When he didn't drink, he was taking heroin and LSD, but mostly heroin. He was a heroin addict straight up. And when he drank, he would get into fights, like brawls with his crew. But what he said was initially, this was a mob rub out because of my family. And they said, what? He said, that's right. This has the mob all already. He names a guy, Tony Mazzio, and he names another guy who were the hitmen who came and executed his family. So the cops look into this. They find this guy Mazzio, who's got an alibi. He's up in Boston at a clinic for some medical purpose, and they tell him Mazzio wasn't even here. So he says, I don't care where Mazzio was. This was a mob rub out of my family. And he sticks to that story, Eric. And then eventually buckles and says, I killed them all, right? The mob story goes away. He says, I killed them all. Once I started, I couldn't stop. Okay. He confesses to the crime. But it turns out there was more to the story than meets the eye. It turns out they beat a confession out of him and roughed him and his friend up. And he had a black eye, had another black eye, and they said his father had done that to him, and it just wasn't true. They beat the living crap out of him, and they got him to confess to whatever. Maybe he did it, maybe he didn't do it, but he begins to explain in interviews the mob connection. And the mob connection is very important to this story because Michael Brigante, who is his grandfather that he loves, is partners with a guy named Joe DeFeo. And you couldn't make this up in the Godfather movies. That's why there was some guy in Australia the other day hassling me that I didn't know the mob, but he was studying the mob in Australia. Let me tell you how inside this stuff is. So just so you know, if you grew up in Brooklyn, this guy is Joe DeFeo. Go back to that picture. Joe DeFeo, the one you just showed on the right, that's Joe DeFeo. Joe DeFeo was a capo for the Genovese family. Brigante, the guy you originally shown, was a Gambino guy. Together, these two guys, two different families. This is how inside the mob it is in this particular story and how Brooklyn was run when I was growing up. This guy here, Brigante, had Brigante Buick. Brigante Buick was a front for the mob. The kid, Butch, also worked in the auto parts department, and the father, Big Ronnie, worked in the auto parts department. You go, well, those are pretty normal jobs, right? That's not what they were doing there. What Big Ronnie was doing was running a double set of books for the business. That was his job, to have a phony set of books. That's what Big Ronnie's job was. Butch's job was a bag man for this guy, Michael Brigante, and also for Joe DeFeo. And a bag man, they trusted this kid, this little kid, by the way, who has nothing to do with this story, is Frank Agolino, Frankie the Hat Agolino, who will later become a mob movie actor. The little kid here, but that's nothing to do with this. He will grow up and be in like 50 mob movies. Analyze this. He was in Goodfellas. This little kid was Billy Batts's right-hand man in Goodfellas. If anybody remembers him, that's Frankie the Hat Agolino. He was part of Billy Batts's crew. He was also in a lot of mob movies. But the point of the matter is his uncle right there is Joe DeFeo. And Joe DeFeo is also the uncle of Ronnie DeFeo and the great uncle of Ronnie DeFeo Jr. So when Ronnie DeFeo Jr. was working at Brigante Buick, he would go around paying off judges and the police force as a bag man for the Genovese and Gambino crime family. How do we know this? Because the police had wiretaps for a number of years on his uncle and Joe DeFeo. And in the wiretaps, when you read the transcripts, you begin to see, as older Joe DeFeo later in life, these two guys were using Brigante Buick as a front.
Was it a chop shop too, maybe?
Oh, no, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was a Buick dealership. They got all these awards. They got all these awards for Buick Dealership of the Year. They were selling straight up. Okay. They would give a brand new Buick to judges and chiefs of police, swear to God. And that was part of the bribery in Brooklyn to state and even once in a while a federal judge. And they were all on the payroll. They would give them a brand new Buick every year, and then they would turn it in and get another brand new Buick. On top of that, he would find a partner every couple of years. It would become like Brigante O'Neill Buick, and O'Neill would be a judge. So he would take political guys, give them half of the dealership, of the Buick dealership, and make them a partner in this mob front Buick dealership out of Coney Island Avenue. This is to my friend in Australia who thinks he knows the mob. Let me tell you, this is the mob. This is how it really works, bro. Okay? So the whole thing was about not selling Buicks. They didn't give a shit about Buicks. It was all about, owning judges, owning cops, being able to have these guys under your thumb through cars and payoffs. There was so much money running through the operation that Ronnie DeFeo, Butch, had and his father had a space over the door of the bedroom where he killed his father that had $600,000 in it. And $100,000 of it was missing. And what the kid figured out was that the dad was ripping off Michael Brigante, and his days were numbered. So his dad comes to him, his own dad, gives him a .38 revolver and says, "I want you to go kill your grandfather." This is all before the event. This is all leading, right. This is what nobody knows. He goes, "I can't kill my grandfather." He says, "Either you kill your grandfather or I'm going to kill you." Puts a gun to his own son's head. He says, "I'll blow your effing head off if you don't do this." He takes the gun, goes to his grandfather and gives him the gun and tells him the story I just told you. And the grandfather says, "You did the right thing." Now the grandfather is totally connected, and his daughter is married to the guy. So he can't really whack his own son-in-law because of his wife. Now his wife has 3 lovers, and she's getting beaten by her husband because he's senses that she's cheating on him. He's got a wife in New Jersey with kids, a separate family, Big Ronnie, and Brigante now is wiretapped by that's a painting of his daughter. That's Brigante's daughter, the wife, the mother of young Ronnie, Butch DeFeo. Yeah. So she has an affair. She has an affair with the portraitist, the guy who did that portrait. It's one of her affairs. So she's not so innocent in this thing either, the mother. But nevertheless, she's addicted to pills and alcohol, the mom. She's addicted to pain pills and alcohol. The father is a total alcoholic and a bruiser who, like I said, beats the living crap out of everybody. And they have friends who sleep over. Everybody this is not an isolated family. I mean, and then it was a different time. Everybody took a beating back then, to quote a famous DA. I took a lot of beatings, and so did a lot of kids, but not like this. I mean, this was crazy. My dad used to beat the living crap out of me too, but not at this level. This guy, I don't know what that is in his left hand except some liqueur.
It's a bottle.
Some bottle of wine or something.
Yeah.
He probably had to hold that bottle in his hand for 12 hours while the guy painted him, I guess. But anyway, so Ronnie is not an average kid. That's what I'm trying to get across here. He is deeply involved with the mob. He's deeply involved running money to different judges, to police. He says, I was in the 70th precinct more than the police were making payoffs. The 70th precinct in Brooklyn. He says, I was in there more than the electricians and more than the mailman in terms of payoffs to that branch of the police. So when he gets arrested and he blames the mob as a hit, it's not completely unfeasible. You know what I mean? It's not completely out of character with what could be happening with this family. Okay, so getting back to what everybody's thinking at home, which is what is really the case. How did Butch DeFeo go through this house with a 35 caliber lever action rifle, shooting everybody in their bedroom, and nobody wakes up, nobody moves, nobody gets out of bed, everybody's in the same position, everybody's face down, everybody's shot in the back? How is that possible, Eric?
It makes you wonder.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
think
obvious you could see the parents,
right?
No problem.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And maybe a sibling, but I mean, just walking around and doing it, how fast would you have to move for people to not respond? You said they were multi-level, so
multi-floors,
different floors.
Three-story house, 3 stories of bedrooms.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It seems like there's more than one person involved.
The coroner said everyone was asleep except the mother, who got up and turned around, but everybody else was shot in the back, face down, under the covers, under the blankets. You know,
right? I mean? This is like a crew. I mean, like everybody would go in and do it. I mean, so that's why the mafia angle, or mob angle, does not seem unreasonable, especially with.
Well, DeFeo says his sister Dawn worked with him to do this. Dawn finally they're both drunk. They're in the basement. And she's saying, we've been talking about this for months. They're going to kill you, Butch. I got to get out of here. Let's just do this and get it over with. This is what Ronnie says, Jr. And that Dawn, when they go up to the bedroom, pulls out her own 38 and shoots her mother. When the mother wakes up and says, Ronnie, not to Ronnie Jr., to Ronnie Sr., who shot twice in the back, DeFeo says it was Dawn who pulled out her 38 and killed her own mother. That's what he said, that him and Dawn did this together. And that's why the father got out of bed. The father was coming at him. He had to kill the father. The father was reaching for his own gun, and he started screaming at him and unloaded the rifle twice in the back. And he says that Dawn was the instigator, and Dawn was the one who made him finally snap and do it.
Okay, so wouldn't anybody notice the ballistics of multiple weapons here?
Okay, there's some controversy about the ballistics on the mother. The bullets were found underneath the bed. Like they went through the person, through the bed, onto the floor.
So it's a rifle, so maybe.
Right, the ballistic guy shows up. He literally picks up a 35 casing, the bullet fragment, and calls it a day on all of them. But she only uses the 38 on the mother, is the only one that she uses it on. And Ronnie claims, again, how does Dawn get shot in the back in her bed? Because she's found in her bed, tucked in. Right. So it's crazy. It's just crazy. But somebody moved these bodies because the father, there's blood on the door of the bedroom. There's blood on the door of the bedroom. So the idea that the father came at him is not inconceivable. Okay.
Sure.
But he's
which makes it even harder to believe, though, the rest of them dying, because that's a lot more noise and rustling and stuff going on for him to go march through the house and kill everybody asleep.
Right. But how does he get his father at 285 pounds back into that bed alone? He claims that his friends were with him. He claims that the two guys who were his crew were down in the basement. They had a pool room down there. And they also had a gun range in the basement where he taught his sister how to shoot. Turns out he had dozens and dozens of guns in the attic. Dozens of guns. Brand new guns. He was a complete gun fanatic, Ronnie Jr. He had tons of guns. Plus, He had a bag with cocaine and $30,000 in cash in the wall that when he went to prison, he had to get one of his friends to break into the house and get the duffel bag out of the ceiling in a crawl space with cocaine in it and 30,000 in cash. Now, when Ronnie talks about his own drug use, he talks about a number of years of doing totally pure crystal meth that he would drive up to Canada and get with with his friends who were dealers. And he got crazy on crystal meth. And the way he got off of crystal meth was to switch to heroin. And that's how he became a heroin addict.
That's like a whiplash.
Right. But I've heard it done before. I mean, it's not unusual to do that. Not unusual. I've heard it done. Let me just put it that way. So he gets into heroin and really just becomes a straight up heroin addict. Now, here's the plot twist that people don't know. It's two things that I know that a lot of people don't know. Ronnie DeFeo did not plan to shoot them. He made Jell-O for dessert. In the Jell-O, he put poison. The Jell-O did not harden fast enough to be served as the dessert. Now, I don't know if Dawn made the Jell-O or Ronnie made the Jell-O, but when I was there, when we were there in Amityville at that time, in 1974, this is what we learned. I don't know if it's true, but that's the story we heard at that time in 1974 in Amityville, New York, that he had made Jell-O, the Jell-O didn't harden, and did not eat it. He wanted to poison the whole family at dinner. And he resorted to the firearms because the Jell-O did not harden.
But why? Why would he kill all the siblings? I get the dad. I mean,
right. It doesn't make sense. Exactly. He said, the mom, it doesn't make sense. But him and his mom had a very close relationship. It doesn't make sense. What makes sense is Brigante going after this guy who was stealing from him with 2 sets of books and gotten caught. Also, that he had gone to Brigante and said, my father wants me to kill you.
Except why would Brigante kill the wife? Unless that's the colossal F up.
I don't know.
No, I'm just saying that's his own daughter.
I know.
So I can't see him killing his. It's so confusing.
Right. But the point of the matter is, this guy took the rap. When he goes on trial, they plead insanity. He gets this attorney, William Weber. Now, the judge is recused from the case with William Weber, his attorney. Why is the judge recused from the case?
William Carr?
No, William. No, close to it. William Weber, the attorney, is his campaign manager.
Oh.
So they bring in this guy Stark to replace him, and Stark is Stark. He's known as the hanging judge in Brooklyn. And they bring in this guy. I wish my grandfather was still alive because he'd probably know all these people. But Stark takes over the case, and he's a prosecution judge. The prosecution forces the other judge out, and they handpick this guy Stark, who is no bullshit. And he, denies every motion by Weber. Weber's trying to plead insanity for his for his client, and out of need, he puts Ronnie DeFeo on the stand, and he starts talking about this and that. Ronnie DeFeo, and probably after the trial, but he puts him on the stand, and all of a sudden, like on the first day or the second day of the trial, DeFeo says, "Yeah, I killed them all, every one of them." He confesses on the stand, Eric, to killing all 6 of them. And the jury's like, whoa, this just made it a lot easier. So they go in and vote, and they take a vote. It's 3 minutes, and then they go, all right, we're done. So one juror holds out, and she says, look, she was 22 years old, this juror. She was very sweet, very naive. And she said, look, I don't know. I think he did it too. Obviously, he said he did it, but we can't just be in here for 5 minutes and come out with a verdict. So she votes innocent, and they go around for a couple of hours and make it look legit.
Okay.
So anyway, when he's convicted, he's sent to 6 consecutive life sentences for a second-degree murder. 25 to life, 25 to life, 25 to life, 25 to life, 6 times, right? So he could get paroled in 1999, in theory, which he had 6 parole attempts or 7, all denied. You know what I mean? But the point of the matter is, he begins to explain this story once he's in prison. He begins to explain how deep he was in the mob in terms of his grandfather and DeFeo out of the Buick dealership. and that his father, Big Ronnie, was stealing this money from his grandfather, and that the mob killed his family. Now, I don't know about the mother, what the deal is with the mother. It could have been the DeFeo side that killed his family. It didn't give a crap about Brigante's daughter. But it really makes no sense for him to kill everybody else but his father. When he was in the police interrogation, the police claimed that he asked about the family's insurance policy. How do I collect on it? It was $200,000. A, it's a crock of shit. He never said that. B, they beat the crap out of him. They had a sketch of where the guns were found, which he dumped into the canal at the end of the street. And they had a sketch drawn of all the bodies and the guns. And they claimed that he drew the sketch. It turned out the police lied. There's a boat. That's the Marine unit for the Amityville Police Department looking for the guns, which they did find right there. Handgun, the Marlin. They found his clothing, a block in Brooklyn. They found his clothing, actually. And his partner, this other kid, denied being part of it.
So hold on. I just want to make sure I hear you correctly. So he did it for life insurance. They managed to find all the guns in the water, but they couldn't find the $30,000 in the bag that his friends had to go pick up. Right. And how much money was in the wall? And did they find that?
600,000. No, they didn't find that either.
Oh, okay. So he had $600,000 in the wall.
Right. It didn't make sense. Right. It didn't make any sense. He's going
to do it for a $200,000.
Right. It was chump change anyway. It was ridiculous. He said he had more money. He had more money than anybody, this kid. You know what I mean? He had access to money. He gave it back to Brigante, and he burned in the fireplace the double set of books that was for Brigante's business. And he told his wife, now this is another plot twist. There's a girl who claimed to be his wife. Now, this woman lived in New Jersey. She was a folk singer from the village named Geraldine Gates. Geraldine Gates claimed to have married him in 1970, lived in New Jersey with him. She had 3 kids or 2 kids from a previous marriage, and he has a kid with her. She claims to be his wife, and indeed she was his wife. So she is also mobbed up. Now, here's the weird twist. She was adopted and had no birth certificate. So when she visits him in prison, he comes up with the idea that she has a brother. He makes up the idea that she has a brother named Richard Ramondo, which is where Roland Tomasi comes in. Roland Tomasi and Richard Ramondo are the same person. Yeah, there she is. Yeah, that's Geraldine Gates. She was also mobbed up folk singer from the village, but junior little gang member. She becomes part of the crew, and she starts doing his bidding from prison. So they create this Richard Ramondo, who's her brother, and he doesn't exist. He gets his friends, his crew on the outside, to all sign affidavits that Richard Ramondo was with him the night of the killings, and he killed his mother. He killed Dawn. He was with him, but this Richard Ramondo was an accomplice. So the Suffolk County Department of Justice and also the police in Suffolk County begin a nationwide manhunt for Richard Ramondo. Richard Ramondo has no medical records. He has no high school records. He has no military records. He has no social security card. And quickly, they begin to turn on the crew, saying, we're going to prosecute every single one of you for perjury if you continue this scam. And it ends up back on the bench of Judge Stark, because who sees through this thing. Again, this is in the appeal process. This is when he's trying to get out, and he's coming up with these different stories. But what Butch, DeFeo feels is he's protected by the mob. He has done the right thing by them. He's going to take the rap. So it's not crazy what he's doing in mob folklore. You know what I mean? He got them the money back. He didn't take the money. He got that back to Brigante. He destroyed the books in the fireplace, and he
took the rap.
Took the rap like a man. And he also has this Geraldine Gates goes to Brigante and says, Butch told me to tell you the paperwork's been destroyed. He sends the messages through her about the double set of books. And he alludes to the fact that this was all about his dad, not him. This was about the mob killing that family because of that dad, who was out of control, Eric. That dad was losing his freaking mind in terms of religious visions and beatings and all kinds of violence and everything else. So I don't know. The whole thing is a crazy, crazy story. But there's real people involved. And the only reason we know all this is the transcripts of the wiretaps having nothing to do with this case. They were wiretapping the mob, the DA's office in Brooklyn. So there's transcripts of Brigante talking about Butch doing the right thing and Brigante talking about how the father is going to get whacked. This is not made up out of thin air by Butch DeFeo. There's a lot of meat on this bone. There's a lot of meat on this bone. And to this day, I mean, the reason Eric and I were interested in doing the show was in March, he passed away.
Last year, 2021.
Right. So we figured we would do this because I haven't thought about this case in 30 years. But the reality of it is, let's get back to the Lutzes, because that's where I wanted to go. The Lutzes, in the middle of this thing, the house is in probate, right? Now, the heir to the house, even though it's owned by Brigante, the heir to the estate is Butch DeFeo, because he is the only surviving member of the DeFeos. But in reality, Brigante owns the house. He's got the deed. There's no mortgage. He paid for it outright with cash. Okay. All of a sudden, this couple shows up from Deer Park, Long Island. There they are, the innocent couple. He claims to be a, what do you call it?
I forgot the term. But
no. He was working in construction. When you do surveying, he was a surveyor. He really was. He was doing construction as a surveyor, but they also claim to be occultists. They also claim to be into transcendental meditation, and they also claim to have the money for the house. Okay, that's kind of crazy. They come out of nowhere. They buy this house. They spend maybe 10 or 28 days there. That's debated that they ever even lived in the house. He's got kids from her marriage. She's got 3 kids. This little girl here on the left. So I don't even know if they're in the house, but everything that they say happened in the house happened in that 1 month period. Okay. Here's the backstory that nobody knows about. This couple here, Ronald DeFeo knew them for years before the incident. Shut up. He would take them to Manhattan to cop heroin and cocaine for her up on Lois Avenue in the Bronx. She wanted coke. He would drive in because he was a veteran drug guy. He did heroin for years. George Lutz, and she was a coke fiend. And he would have to stop off in the Bronx to cop coke for her and then take her with them to the village to buy heroin and then back to Long Island. And he knew Lutz for years, the kid. So this idea that Lutz and his family moved into the house and that was haunted, completely made up. So who's his sidekick? William Weber, the defense attorney. William Weber and Lutz hook up months before this and come up with this cock and bull story of the haunted house before he buys the house. Oh yeah. Enjoying this in the chat? The story is the Lutzes were in on this thing, total drug fiends, the 2 Lutzes, claimed to be occult experts, which was a crock, and wanted to make a fortune. And then they hooked up with Jay Anson and they concocted the book deal. The book deal then becomes the movie. The movie then spins off 100 movies. And he has a part, George Lutz, Amityville, it was called Amityville Horror LLC. He has a piece. Yeah. He has a piece of every single Amityville spin-off documentary and movie ever made. George Lutz. And eventually they passed away, I think, in 2007, 2008 or whatever. Then his kids started to make claims. But the fact of the matter is Ronnie DeFeo knew this guy. Everybody in this crew, and I knew of Ronnie DeFeo's crew. Everybody did. Nobody went near them because they were such thugs. You know what I mean? Like, you ever have that crew in high school that everybody goes, oh, don't go near them.
Yeah, the bad kids. And by the way, that's William Weber.
Yeah, there's William Weber. He was the murder. attorney. He had only tried an arson case, never had a murder case in his life.
Wow.
So Weber becomes the literary agent for the Lutzes, even though he's the attorney for DeFeo. So they come up to the prison and they want DeFeo to sign a contract, $850,000 contract, that DeFeo would be involved in this. He signs the contract. This is for the movie deal. And the Lutzes take the money and they flee Long Island for California, never come back. They ripped off everybody and went to California, according to Butch DeFeo. Interesting story, but he never got a piece of that movie action. And he frankly didn't care. But I mean, the reality of it is this kid had money all the time growing up, and he never heard for money because he was not a rich kid. This is a mob kid. And when people heard about the original story was the father had a car dealership, took away the kid's car for a date, and the kid went nuts and killed everyone. That was the original story from day one. And as this story unfolds, you see how many levels there are. Now, the real story of why he was despised by his family was he had a black girlfriend and he had a black best friend. And that did not go well in that Italian conservative family. Despite this so-called wife in New Jersey, his girlfriend in Amityville was black and his best friend was black. And that was taboo in 1973, 1974. In those circles, Catholic Italian circles in New York, Amityville, New York. And they hated him for that. And he admitted it. It was to stick it to them. And how racist he talked about this later, how racist his family was in terms of Moulignan and other ethnic slurs that they would use around the house and things of that nature, which was very common, not uncommon. But for a mobbed up kid back then, it was like, taboo for him to be doing that. But this kid was a wild hooligan. He was, this was a young, wild kid at the time. And he was involved in a lot of different criminal activities, but not murdering his entire family. Now, I don't know anyone who gets on heroin and says, I'm going to become violent. The crystal meth made sense, but he had given up the crystal meth years before. When I first thought about it, I thought, well, he was on crystal. He went crazy on crystal. Happens all the time. But he had given up the crystal years before that and switched to heroin. He had tracks up and down his arms. And the police said his arms were clean. He said that I still have the tracks now. This was 2 years ago when he died. He still had the fact that the cops, they found morphine in the house. They found the syringes. And he just, he admitted it that they were his. But I don't know who does morphine or who does heroin and then goes on a murder spree. That's just crazy. Anyway, in the court, this came out. They tried to plead insanity. It really, really went nowhere, the insanity plea. It just didn't bite with the jury. And he was convicted, like I said, in 5 minutes. But then again, he took the stand and said, I killed them all. So I don't know what you do with that if you're a juror. So the William Weber made each juror stand up and say yes to each 6 counts times 12. Each juror was forced to stand there and go, yes, 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 to all the 6 murders. Anyway, let me see if you got a couple of photos here that you could show. I don't know what your
of which I don't have any crime scene stuff. But
no. That's a good one right there. There's the Daily News. I remember that. Son charged in slaying of 6. That was very popular. These were, let's see what else. The DeFeo, the family.
It's a list of everyone who passed.
Right. Okay.
We've got the funeral.
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you about the funeral, because everybody in the whole town turned out for that funeral, and people were fainting when they saw the 6 caskets. I mean, it was such a powerful situation in terms of grief that women were passing out in the aisles, seeing these 6 caskets come in like a train. Show that there's another shot of the funeral, I think, where the 6 caskets are outside. This one, oh my God, yeah, this was just heart-wrenching. This was heart-wrenching. I mean, nobody had ever seen anything like this, Eric. I mean, keep in mind, this is 1974. I mean, mass murder was just in its infancy, and this type of stuff just hadn't happened yet. This was before, Sam, and before everything else. And the whole family being killed by one guy. I mean, it was just an incredible, incredible story that wouldn't go away. Then replaced by the haunted house story. This part of the story was forgotten because of the haunted house story. This part of the story went away in the media when the haunted house story came into the mainstream. But I mean, it was an incredible, incredible time where there was a lot of craziness in the air. I'll just put it that way. That whole town was crazy. Everything about it. It was just creepy. I mean, it was like a post-60s weird, screwed up town. And the people who came there were from New York, and they were trying to move to the suburbs, and they were really urban people living in the suburbs for the first time. They were like fish out of water, I think is what including my own family. We had done the same thing that these guys had done. We'd moved from Brooklyn out to Long Island and with a family and already intact. And it was very common right then. In 69, my parents bought a house there. They paid brand new house, exactly like the Goodfellas house that Ray Liotta lived in. Same exact house. They shot it a couple of blocks away. A 2-level high ranch in Massapequa, brand new with plot of land, $19,999, Eric. An entire giant house for $19,000, brand new, brand freaking new. No, how could you not move from Sheepshead Bay to Massapequa? I mean, they were all down the block, brand new houses in a development. I mean, for that price, I mean, come on.
Right, and you've got people screaming in the chat at different points about Ed and Lorraine Warren.
I don't know anything about them.
I think they're the ones who took the picture, I believe, of the ghost boy in the house.
Okay, and there is no part of the ghost in the house that is not a hoax. So it's been thoroughly debunked, even by the people involved in it. Yeah, there's Ghost Boy. Yeah, there he is. They brought in a ghost hunting crew that night. And I'll tell you something else. The Cromarties who moved in afterwards, and every single family that moved in the same house after this said they never had an incident ever once in that house. So every single family afterwards, Cromarties on down, the house flipped about 6 to 8 times. No family has ever had an incident in that house. The ghost stopped as soon as the Lutzes sold the house. So
and the movie deal.
And got the movie deal, and then all of a sudden it stopped. And the Lutzes, it only happened when they were in there for the 10-day period, I guess, if they were even in there for 10 days. Because the neighbors looked through the window, and they claim the Lutzes never even unpacked. They have no Christmas photos. They have no children photos. They have no photos of them living there. They have absolutely no photo representation of the Lutzes physically moving in, unpacking, and living in that house. And that included Christmas. And there's no family photos of the Lutz's kids at Christmas in that house. Remember that. All you ghost people out there who thought there were, different ghost hunters. It was a scam. The Lutzes were in on it. The whole thing was a hoax. It got a lot of mileage. And Jay Anson's book, which is completely made up, it says Amityville Horror True Story. That was bought by the movie studios, and there it is. Yeah. The publishing company stood behind Jay Anson 100%. If you think the publishers are not corrupt, you're crazy. This publishing house, which I forget, it was a big house, stood behind Jay Anson and this story with footnotes and everything else. It was all a crock. And he made up half of the stuff in the book that even the Lutzes didn't come up with. Anson made this up. So, and then he got the movie deal, which is, I guess, how you get that. And look at the money. Until 1990, that movie was the highest grossing independent film of all time until 1990. That's how much money Amityville Horror made as a movie. Not the sequel. I'm not counting the sequels, which is 2, and then it spins off into some others.
I think 6 or something.
Right, but I think 1 and 2 were the same production companies. I don't know about all 6.
Well, I think they remade it again. as
Oh
well.
yeah, oh yeah,
So it's like,
there's over 100 different spinoffs. I think there's like 80 different things, including documentaries. I mean, the mileage on this thing has never been copied. It's never been no subject. First of all, they you know, every Halloween people would come by the house, so they'd have to put up police and everything else to get them away from the house, the regular trick-or-treaters. And the neighborhood kids would chant outside the house, Ronnie, can Ronnie come out and play? Ronnie. And the kids in the neighborhood. That's kind of sick. This is one of the shots of the house, the eyes of the window. The window is supposed to be the eyes of the house, if I remember the movie correctly.
yeah, it's probably what helped make the theme.
The poster, yeah, the owners right now. They put in rectangular windows. That they don't have those eyes anymore. I haven't been there in a long time, but you know, when we were growing up in Amityville, I mean, when we lived by there, we used to go by that house all the time, before and after. You know, because right by there is the canal. It's pretty close to. It's an amazingly expensive house that it sold for like 600,000 a couple of years ago. This thing should be like 4 million. It's got a boathouse, a pool. The land goes straight back. There's a canal. I mean, dude, it's an unbelievable house. But there's never been any poltergeist activity ever recorded other than the Lutzes in the same house. It was a 1928 house. It wasn't from the 1600s. It was built in 1928, and it's a Dutch colonial
craftsman or
no it's like a Dutch colonial. There's a bunch of them down that street. That is the old Amityville neighborhood, by the way, of old Amityville. And it's like south of Merrick Road, south of Sunrise Highway, on the water. And that was the original where Amityville does go back to the 1600s, and there were Indian tribes living there. There was some rumor that the house was buried on the graves of dead Indian tribes or something.
I think that was one of the movie plots.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, but there was some scuttlebutt. Then the Indians came out and said, nah, we buried them 10 miles from there. You know, it was the wrong burial. They were coming up with such desperate plots, you know, by the fourth or fifth movie that I guess they had to go with the Indian theme that you recall.
Well, it's a good one. I mean, you know, it's revenge and it's cultural revenge and appropriation and all the elements.
It's got all the elements. But yeah, the Lutzes got away with murder. I don't know if they weren't involved in the murder, but they got away with financial murder. That's for sure.
I wonder if they found any of the money in the house, if they were part of this crew.
I don't know, because he knew where the money was hidden, Ronnie Jr., and it was in a crawl space, and he literally drew a sketch for one of his friends to get the money out of there. So I don't know if the Lutzes definitely didn't get any money, from what I understand. I think Brigante eventually died of natural causes, and you showed DeFeo. He lived to a very old age. He was, like I said, he was a capo, and Brigante was a front for the Gambino family. The Gambinos kind of ran their operation out of Massapequa. The Gambinos had a lot of presence back there in that little area of Long Island. That was where Gambino had a house. Besides Brooklyn, he had the house on Long Island. And when we were kids, we got into a motorboat and we went around to the little peninsula, which was a Gambino crime house. And they came out on the island, this little peninsula. They had machine guns and they were pointing them at us, laughing. And we went, okay. And we were in a Boston whaler, and we just backed it up, and we thought we would be smart asses, and we'd roll up with this motorboat, you know, right on Gambino's dock in Tow Bay. But we saw the machine guns and we thought better of it.
You weren't the brightest kid out there.
No, not at all. We had balls, but we weren't bright. No, I never claimed that. You know, I mean, it was a dumb time when you took a lot of drugs for the first time and you were stoned and everything else. Yeah, he was getting pot for his sister, Dawn, who was smoking the pot out of a pipe right in front of her father's face. And she would taunt her father, and she took a giant butcher knife the night before and went at him with the butcher knife, and he laughed and disarmed her very quickly, this 280-pound man, and just said, you want to stab me? You want to stab me? This is the night before. This is the daughter who has a boyfriend and is trying to get to Florida. to escape the house. At 18, she's an adult and she can't get out. So, I mean, the abuse in that household was legendary.
When Ron didn't.
Oh, this is in Greenhaven. This was at the end. Yeah, he's in his 60s there, 63 or 4 years old. But he'd been in prison 40 years at that time. So he was totally institutionalized, 40 years in Greenhaven, and I think a couple other prisons in New York. Greenhaven is medium security, if I remember correctly. He had a lot of privileges as an honoree. Being there that long without any incidents allowed you to walk around the prison and go to the commissary and do a bunch of different things freely as a veteran prisoner, which he had all the top rights of an honoree in the prison system. Butch.
Well, he was fortunate that the crime happened during the period that the death penalty was stopped.
Yeah,
because that was that little window.
Yeah, it was a little window. Absolutely. There wasn't an option. He got second degree and he almost got the retrial. But like I said, Judge Stark saw through this whole scam with the phony brother. I mean, he went to great lengths to get a retrial with the Ramondo phony brother angle and the affidavits. Wow, he almost got it too. He almost got it because they had new evidence. The judge said, if you have anything evidentiary, I will consider a retrial. And what they had evidentiary-wise was the blood on the door and the walls. How could that blood be on the floor? How could that be there if the father had died face down in bed? And the judge said, The judge heard the same thing I described earlier. How did this man go around killing everyone without anybody getting out of bed with no accomplices? And the judge said, you know what? That's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy. So they came in with photos of blood splatters on the door and the wall, which is still there, apparently, months after the murder.
Jesus. Okay.
And it was the father's blood. And this was like 35 feet away, by the door. So apparently the father was shot in the hallway, and then somehow dragged back to the bed, placed face down, and had the blanket put over him. Again, nobody ever explained this properly as to how this happened.
Yeah, that's weird.
Right. To this day, it's a mystery. Nobody knows to this day how it happened. And he claims, it doesn't diminish his role in it, but it does warrant a new trial if you had accomplices.
Oh, yeah. I feel like there's definitely something unexplained here. And then if he did it with Dawn, what do you say? Okay, now I need you to go lay down. It's your turn.
That doesn't make sense either. I think she was sleeping. He had an accomplice. The accomplice did that. Maybe the accomplice, the other kid, Crinkle, whatever his name was, one of his friends, shot his sister in the back and shot the other two kids. I don't think he did it. I think the accomplice did that. I think he killed his father. He killed his mother. And the accomplice killed the four siblings.
Okay, this is an interesting chat. Sorry to interrupt, but
yeah.
Say what? So, Brian, were you a guard or were you in the prison?
He was in Honor Block. Okay, yeah. Where is Great Meadow again? Where is that prison? I don't remember Great Meadow Prison. Is that a New York State prison or?
I'm not sure. And I don't know if
I've never heard the name of that prison, so I don't really. But he was an Honor Block prisoner most of his stays, from what I understand.
Well, I mean, he was connected to.
Now, one of the side stories, which is really bizarre, which is, of course, again, I don't even know how to explain this. The father, Big Ronnie, has a fight with his wife, and she's going to leave him, right? And he writes a song to get her back, and the song is called "The Real Thing," and it's written by Ron DeFeo. It's called "The Real Thing," recorded by Big Joe Williams, one of the great singers of all time, Joe Williams. And it becomes a hit song. And she comes back to him after the song is released. He wrote it for her and somehow now the mob controlled the record industry. So maybe that was how he did it, but he got Big Joe Williams to record this song. And it's a real good song, and it's a great recording. And we're going to put it on Locals so we don't get copyright stricken here, Eric, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
so you can listen to the song on Locals. It's fantastic, and it brings his wife back to him. This is a number of years before he's killed, uh, while his wife is trying to escape the clutches, but she's trapped in this, abusive relationship without a doubt. But he writes this incredible song to bring her back. So again, this is one of the craziest love stories of all time. Just him and his wife. That's the whole story. You know how they both have lovers, they both have mistresses, they're breaking up, they're fighting, and yet he gets Big Joe Williams to sing this song, The Real Thing.
It's a country song too, isn't it?
No, it's a love song. It's a love ballad. No,
Okay.
it's a beautiful, beautiful love ballad. You'll when you hear it, it sounds like Frank Sinatra. Like Sinatra could have sung it. Joe Williams was like a black Frank Sinatra. If that makes anybody that makes sense to anybody. But incredible singer, incredible voice. But and he's got credit. You look on the album, it says Ron DeFeo on the record as the writer. I mean, it's just strange, man. There's so many things. What was on the B-side? Love Kills. That's funny, Gavin. That's funny. The Real Thing was on one side and the Wrong Thing was on the other side. I don't know. But again, another oddity having nothing to do with the crazy Amityville horror movie. There's more meat on the bone separate from the haunted house than could ever be in the haunted house movie.
Which actually sounds much more interesting than the haunted house movie.
Absolutely. We were fascinated much more about this stuff. The haunted house movie comes out in 1979, but all of this stuff was stuff people talked about from 1974 to 1979, and then it went away. It was just movie. But this was fascinating to us, the fact that this entire mob family was operating in Amityville, in this quiet suburb.
Good Lord. It was the Sopranos of the day.
Mm-hmm. It was the Sopranos of the day. That's a good analogy.
Wow.
Right.
All right. Well, we've got some support coming in.
What?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Tarkina Meyer. Happy Dia los Locos Muertos.
Oh, yeah. Day of the Dead. Yeah. Today's Day of the Dead. See, it is a haunted kind of day. It's All Saints Day. It's the Day of the Dead. There's a lot of darkness today.
And we're providing.
We won't give up the photo. So,
well, it can harm our locals people.
Right.
Oh, wow.
On locals, you can see it. Quit my job.
Okay.
Wow, that's commitment. That's
no
really.
Kidding. I haven't even quit my job, dude. So
right. I don't even have a job. Okay, let's go. Kenneth May.
New member. Thank you.
Kenneth May.
Sanchia Drobina. Hi from Tassie. Finally caught you live off topic, but waiting for November 8th. My faves are in favorite Florida, Arizona. Wish I could vote. Love you guys. Awesome. I don't know. Are you who has Oswald and the Groubert in Tasmania?
Yeah.
Is that who has them?
Oh,
no,
yes.
I think that's awesome on the other side of the planet.
Yeah, she's got him on the other side of the planet. She's a big fan of the show.
John Edwards, a super sticker.
John Edwards is a big fan of the show. He used to be a senator, I think, right? Didn't he have an affair with a woman and this whole thing went out?
And a kid.
North Carolina, Eric? Was that
yeah, North Carolina, like a campaign person or whatever. And that the Inquirer.
Filmmaker, remember?
David Pecker broke that with the Inquirer.
Right. Pecker broke the story. That was before I was at the
because he thinks about peckers and it would associate that a pecker was involved.
It's so funny when you meet Pecker and he says his name is David Pecker. To me, it's hard not to crack up laughing when I shook his hand for the first time.
Well, that's like Wiener. It's like, and the guy says Wiener, and it would be like I forgot who was somebody's riffing on it, but it's so true. It'd be like, no, it's Weiner. This is a long German tradition.
This was Pecker. There was no way around it. He goes, "Hey, how you doing? Glad to meet you, David Pecker." And you just go, but he's a multimillionaire who's your boss, so you can't really do that.
No kidding. And look, Georgina's here, helping you get to the haunting story. Have you ever been in the house, Mark?
No, I've been past the house and I've been in the house. I was gonna say that. Never been in the house.
Not too bad.
Yeah. Well, it's not too bad. I had no desire to go in the house.
I don't know. You're everywhere else. Why?
No, but I never had any reason to go into the house. I didn't know about the drugs, but I had heard years ago that Lutz has sat down with Anson, right, came up with a story. No, he sat down with Weber over 10 bottles of wine, not not Anson. Anson comes later. Anson comes much later in the story. It was with Weber, who is the defense attorney for Butch DeFeo, and he switches to literary agent.
Oh, well, there you go. Also known as gatekeeper. No,
I don't. Yeah, great story, Mark. Great shirt and jacket combo. Oh, okay, are you getting somewhere? Okay.
Yeah, this is a good question.
What was the independent film that eventually clipped? I forget. I don't know. 1990 was some big indie film. I forget. How many people sleep face down? Everybody said the same thing, right? This whole family slept face down. No, but it's rare. It's rare. Even the coroner said that. I think the coroner said that it was unusual, and the coroner, when he was in the trial, he came to be on the stand, and they asked the coroner, does he think that this man was able to kill all 6 people? And he said, well, how come they didn't wake up when the shots went off? And the coroner was quickly ushered off of the stand by the prosecution. He was a prosecution witness.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Tell him what he's won, Bob. You win a free trip to Sayville.
Nothing witty to say, just saying hi. Well, hello.
That was witty.
And witty enough. Any interest in having a live chat in your locals? Nick Recada's locals chat is full of degenerates in a good way. Great episode.
We've done that, right? Or
I've turned it on and off depending, like especially when we do a Q&A. Usually what happens is I turn it on and I occasionally look and there's nobody there.
What?
So, yeah, the live chat. We haven't quite got it on. Let me see.
We don't really have those numbers though, but if Pasha keeps coming back, we'll begin to get better.
Absolutely. Pasha's
Tin Cup. I challenge Mark, do a story with which you are not somehow. Yeah, it's weird. It's kind of weird. Like when I started to tell Eric about the channel idea, I said, I'm in a lot of these stories, but I think even Eric didn't realize how many stories I'd be in the middle of.
No, I'd be like, this guy's nuts. And next. Next, sorry.
It's just a coincidence. I don't, unless you're like Forrest Gump or something, or you end up in the middle of these stories. I mean, I went to high school with the guy. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, it's just a fact, and it's the only reason I care about the story. The only reason I know about it. I wouldn't even care about this if the guy didn't go to my high school. There was only 600 people in the goddamn high school.
Oh, look at that. We got some Rumble rants. Lieutenant Ma'am wants you to sing the song for him.
Which song? I'm
guessing the Joe Williams song.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, I don't remember the lyrics, but it's a great song.
And Rolf Epp for $10, patron of the arts. I am. Thanks for your work. Throw the bear a bone and sleep soundly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And there's 189 people watching right now on
Rumble.
On Rumble, yeah.
It's pretty good. Is there a cover charge to get into Rumble? What is it?
No, totally free. It's an option. If you don't want to pay YouTube, you can watch on Rumble. Love having anybody watch anywhere.
I got a haircut. I got a pretty short haircut by Christy of Beverly Hills yesterday. I don't know what she was thinking.
I don't know. It's more time between haircuts. She's like, oh, you know what? You're going to go to Dallas.
I'm tired of coming over here. Yeah.
She's trying to get it ready because we do have something coming up.
What?
Yeah, later this month. You and I are going to be here.
Wow, that looks exciting, Eric. This is going to be great.
Yep.
We're going to go to Dallas. We're going to interview as many. I talked to this Rob Morrow today, who's the LBJ
good.
guy.
Is he going to be there?
He's at another conference, but I said you got to come over to this conference so we can interview you for America's Untold Story.
For sure.
We'll try to get as many interviews as we can, obviously, while we're there. But it's a 2-day conference. If you guys are in Texas, you could come to the conference and meet us. It's a small cover to get into the conference. You could just come for the day, and they're screening all different films, and there's all kinds of symposiums. This one's dedicated to Cyril Wecht, who's on the board. This is from a group called CAPA, Citizens Against Political Assassination. Is one of the oldest anti-political assassination organizations in America. Goes back to the 70s.
Yeah, Cyril.
Yeah, Cyril Weck, but Oliver Stone was part of it. The original group had a lot of celebrities signed on to it, and it was just a group on both sides of the aisle that were opposed to CIA coup d'etats in foreign countries and apparently domestic. And it's called CAPA, C-A-P-A, Citizens Against Political Assassination. It's a nonprofit, and if you join, you can go to the conference at a discounted rate, or if you don't join, you could still just pay to go to the conference, and you could meet us apparently if we're there. And why not?
We are there, and we better be.
Dallas. Well, where do you want to be at that time other than Dallas?
I know I will at least be at the hotel where it's existing, and I already
have
a plane ticket.
In the hotel. There's only get them.
So, Beverly Fitch would rather do Rumble, but it's not easy to do Rumble rants. Totally understand, and I appreciate it. However it comes in, but
right.
Rumble, hopefully they'll get there. There's some issues. Is Ruth Payne going to be there? Probably not.
Not this conference. She doesn't come to this one. There's the other conference, which is the crazy conference with Judith Vary Baker and all the other fringe elements. You can go to that one, or this is the CAPA one is the main JFK conference every year. Next year, which I want to go to this one this year. This is going to be 59 this year. Yep. Next year is going to be the big one at 60. And hopefully Eric and I go back for 60, which is going to be gigantic. But I wanted to do 59 also and help support them and help support us if you remember to subscribe. And you could support me on PayPal or Venmo for the JFK Book Fund, so we can get some more books to learn about some of the more obscure members of the assassination. We're going to do the JFK thing that weekend, so we're not going to do anything about JFK until then.
And we're going to be putting that on Locals. I mean, Locals is getting a total priority. I will do my damnedest to live stream while I'm down there with Mark onto Locals exclusively for people. So,
it's going to be two guys in bathrobes in a hotel. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and we'll be, having to watch out for security behind us because they get a little weirded out when we keep going through the gift shops in there. But
well, whatever. have you been to Dealey Plaza before?
I only drove through it, and it was like
okay, all right,
well, and it was kind of like that was it.
Yeah. I'll walk you through the exact spots. It'll blow.
Yeah, I'll follow you around with it. We'll get better. We'll get even more footage.
Yeah, it's mind blowing when you see how small it is and how much of a chip shot these shots are. It looks bigger on TV for some reason, but when you get there, it's really small, as many people have indicated.
I'm not sure about the 218. That's an interesting amount, Pasha, but
might be out of the Bible. Might be some biblical reference by.
Might be, but apparently he's going to help Beverly with the Rumble questions.
Okay, Moyle of the Year, Pasha Moyer. Hold on.
Yiddish word of the day.
Oh yeah, I had this today. Now I forgot what the Yiddish word of the day was. Now schmeckel seems to be in my head, but that's coming from Viva. It wasn't schmeckel. It was some other word. I don't know. We're going to go with kasha varnishkis just for a holiday meal. We'll put that one out there. Anyway, so we've got Robert on Friday, right?
Yep. Barnes for Freeform Friday.
This is going to be good. This is going to be good. Election special
on Tuesday.
Oh, no. Tuesday is our election special, which will be
just elections, just American
I'm going to
elections.
get into the history of bizarre American elections, like dead candidates. I'm going back through history, not recent stuff. I'm going to come up with some of the craziest elections of all time, if I can. I don't even know if they exist, but I'm going to dig into it over the weekend after we get with this show.
And there's always the election of 1800 we could talk about too. With
any of the bizarre elections we're going to get into. Obviously, we won't have photos. Well, maybe we will have photos. I don't know. It's going to be some in the 1900s.
We'll see.
Yeah,
it'll be fun.
I don't know what's going to be out there. So, but we've got Robert on Friday, which we're going to talk about his predictions.
Of course,
his final predictions.
But it is freeform, so God only knows.
Because, I don't know what else.
That'll probably come up in the mix of everything else that comes up on Freeform Friday.
Right. It could be about a lot of other stuff, but we will at least have him. He has some inkling about the attacker in the Pelosi case who may have been MK Ultra, and we've been talking behind the curtain, Robert and I, about the Pelosi situation with MK Ultra. So might be some of that on Friday.
Good times.
Yeah, good times. We don't know, but stay tuned to this bat channel, this bat time.
And stay tuned to Locals. Hope to see everybody there. Unstructured.locals.com. Mark's got a PayPal. Links in the description.
Links in the description. Follow me on Twitter at Lord Buckley. I mean,
always
hold on.
Merch.
Hold on.
Always good merch. Like this polo.
Should we bring some merch to Dallas with us? Or what should we do?
I'll bring in probably some magnets and stickers or
magnets.
Stuff that I can carry around. I mean,
right.
It's not
It's gonna stick to your head though. What are you gonna do when you get stuck to the head?
Dude, I don't have the hair. It'll help me.
No, but the plate that's in your head, it may get stuck to it.
It might. Whatever. I need to be easily found from a distance.
You're gonna be sticking to the roof of the plane though. That's the problem.
Allegedly.
Right. Allegedly.
So,
okay, so that was a pretty good show. I don't know what people are complaining about.
I don't know, but I know they'll be subscribing to complain again.
People watching this or what?
949 right now.
Okay. I hope they liked it because that was a really weird America's Untold Story.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everybody will be back, and we'll see you Friday for
Friday.
Friday.
Yeah, we'll be back on Friday. Thanks for coming by. Thank you.